Good afternoon. Thank you, students and parents and teachers, for joining us today. This is our final Are You Ready? Success Series live webinar for season 2. We've been focusing on entrepreneurship and business skills. And today we are with our panel of experts, and we are so excited to have all of you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules for being with us. And I will turn it over to Leslie and our wonderful partners at JA Southwest Florida.
Hello, everybody. So I am Leslie Mufali. I work for Junior Achievement of Southwest Florida. And if you haven't heard of Junior Achievement before, we wind up taking what you learn in the classroom and help you to apply it to your future life, your career, your work experience. So we focus on helping to teach financial literacy, work readiness, career readiness, and entrepreneurship. And today's focus, of course, is that entrepreneurship pillar. So we have a panel of experts that are business owners within our community. And we're going to go ahead and ask each of them to introduce themselves, so that way you know who they are, what their business is, or where they're from, how they started. And then basically we'll just ask questions just to see the steps they had to take, some of the processes that they had to go through to get where they are today. So we're going to go ahead and start off, and I'm going to go in order of our panelists. I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself with your name, your title, your company name, where you're from. If you went to college, where did you go to college? What was your major? Just a little bit of background history, please. And we're going to start off with Jeffrey.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Aiken. I am now retired, so I call myself a career volunteer. I spent my career in the finance industry, helping businesses and governments, corporations, individuals in some cases, raise money. I have an undergraduate degree in economics. I have a graduate degree in business and finance. I started in the business working for a large institution. I thought that's all I wanted to do. And after about 6 months, I realized that was not a true statement. But I also recognized that I needed to spend the next 2.5 years there to give myself the foundation that I needed. So I did that for 17 years. I made a major move from one of the country's more attractive cities, Boston, back to my hometown in Cleveland to take a position. I spent 17 years there as a general partner of an investment banking firm, focused mostly on healthcare. I left there to start a succession of 3 independent leasing companies in medical equipment. Retired from that. Got into teaching, entrepreneurship, and eventually became the director of Center for Entrepreneurship at a small college outside of Cleveland. I think I covered it.
Perfect. So Sean from Twin Cuts, Sean Casey, please go ahead and introduce yourself, and the same, your company name, where you're from, did you go to college? If you did, what was your major, how you got into the thought process of entering entrepreneurship.
So my name is Sean Casey. I'm the founder and owner of Twin Cuts Barbershops. Currently, we have 7 locations in the area, from Naples, Cape Coral, Estero, and Fort Myers. One 2018 Small Business of the Year, and one 2022 Barbershop of the Year for Salon Centric magazine, which is kind of the GQ magazine of the hair industry. So nationally won that award here in Fort Myers, Florida. I started my journey as an entrepreneur in 2010. I moved here in 2006 from New York. I got my barbering license in New York in 1998. I tried college for about a year at Pace University in Lower Manhattan, but just found out that I was much more of a creative and more stimulated in arts, and never really was stimulated through adaptive learning and just found my path through creative learning. And what I was able to develop through creative learning was the love of hair. And through hair has allowed me to take each step into starting my own business. And here I am today doing entrepreneurship, as well as being an educator, traveling around the country and doing a lot of these local barber colleges within Fort Myers area.
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. So, Connie Ramos Williams, please, again, same, where you started, how did you get into it? Did you go to college? If so, what was your major? And then your business?
Well, thank you for having me today. As you said, Connie Ramos Williams is my name. I am from the Miami market, and you could say I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have a passion for creating businesses. I'm a firm believer that if you say, I think we need something in this market that looks like this, if I said it more than once, then I need to get off my bottom and get out there and go ahead and start it, or at least help someone get going on a business like that here in our marketplace. But I'm the founder of Southwest Florida Parent and Child Magazine, the founder of Gulf Coast Dining Magazine, and also the founder of Conrick PR and Marketing. I have sold all three of those businesses over the years. So right now, currently, I'm wearing that retired title like Jeffrey up here. But retired, I think, doesn't mean really not working, because we seem to work and volunteer and do a lot of philanthropy out there. I do a lot of mentoring for not only students, but women in business as well, and do some business consulting for businesses in our region and across the country for those that are looking to create exit strategies and also to launch new business and business products. In my spare time, I'm writing a trilogy. I've been wanting to write some fictional novels, and I figured while I'm wearing that retired title still, I should go ahead and get started doing that, because I said that more than twice now. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started. I've got about halfway through the first of the 3 books. So hoping maybe in 2024 I'll have something ready to publish. I did go to college. I went to Miami-Dade College and studied, believe it or not, health sciences, totally different than the careers that I've had over the last couple decades. I started off 18 years seeing patients in Miami as a dental hygienist, and did that for 18 years, but I wasn't servicing the creative side of my brain, and decided I needed to go ahead. As much as I really enjoyed that career, really looking to tap into the other things that I really wanted to accomplish while I'm here on this earth, you know. And I think that's everything. I think that answered all the questions.
That's perfect. Thank you, Connie.
You're welcome.
And then we also have Rick Hine on board. So again, Rick, if you can go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, how you started, if you have any college education, or basically how you got where you are.
Well, I'm Rick Hine, hello, and I'm the CEO of a company called Vessel Vanguard down here in Bonita Springs. It's a marine management, maintenance management, and safety management company, and we basically serve operators around the world, basically for passenger vessels, and not cruise ships, but tugboats and work vessels and yachts, to manage their maintenance and safety requirements for the Coast Guard and other regulatory agencies. So it's an interesting business. This is, I think, the 5th or 6th company that I've started, and it jumps around from various industries, from financial services back in New York in the 90s, jumping into facilities management, businesses in New York City, then got into aviation and did that for about 17 years, a company called Flight Docs, and sold that. I actually sold most of them, and I kicked everything off with at 17 painting houses, and that was my first entree into entrepreneurship. which somewhat derailed my college experience because I had gone off to CW Post in New York and a New York State school up there. And I wound up making just far too much money at 17, 18 years old. And I thought I'd take some time off from college, and I didn't go back. I was fortunate enough, though, to get a decent string of opportunities as an entrepreneur, and no regrets.
Great. So I'm going to head back to you, Connie, because you made some points about how you started and how you're no longer in that career field. So, and I thought that was pretty relevant, especially when you're trying to figure out what you do, what you're going to do for your future. You had said that you started off in health science as a dental hygienist. So how do you go from where you started going to school in getting an education in the health sciences to all of a sudden just switching and becoming an entrepreneur?
You know, that's a very good question, and one I answer quite often. Not a lot of people still in the community, I think, even know I was a dental hygienist for 18 years. You know, when I moved here from Miami, I was still practicing dental hygiene, but only 2 days a week, because I saw an immediate need in this community for a parenting magazine. When I was in the Miami market, we had a really great parenting magazine, and I came here and I was sitting on the sidelines at different soccer games and things with my kids, talking to parents. We all had the same needs, you know. What's a good doctor for speech therapy? What's a good place to take my kids to go eat? Where's a great place for sports or an outfit or something? And I caught myself saying a couple times, gosh, I wish we had a magazine like that in this marketplace. And literally from that moment, as I said, if you say that too many times, you know, a real entrepreneur who's passionate about starting things, they're just going to go with it, you know. But, you know, you can't just start willy-nilly. I am a firm believer in doing some research first. So I looked at the marketplace here and looked at how many students are in Lee and Collier County, how many parents, how many businesses that could support a magazine like Southwest Florida Parent and Child. And after just a couple months of research where I had all that data collected, I knew I'd be able to, you know, number one, write, because I did love creative writing in college and also in high school as well. I knew I'd be able to write it. I knew I'd be able to get photos. I decided to wear a lot of the hats myself initially, even distributing the magazine. You know, I think there's, you as an entrepreneur, you want to learn it all, and then you delegate and hire out for those things that really aren't your passion points, or that you might wake up and dread each morning, because you don't want to burn yourself out. So if you're that business owner and you're still distributing magazines, and that's not the labor of love you wanted when you set out to create a magazine, you hire those things for sure. But what gave me that bug that I thought I could just do that with a health science degree? Honestly, I think I was born with that innate sense that I really do believe if you set your mind to it, you can accomplish it. Some things absolutely have to have a degree. I couldn't have been a dental hygienist without a degree and without so many hours of practical training and patients to see. But to be a publisher of a magazine or to start a marketing company, really doing the research, make sure you take courses to get some training or to get mentored. Those are the things that are necessary to make sure you have the confidence and ability to do what you're doing, but you don't necessarily have to go back to school for a 4-year degree or a master's degree to do those things very well. Hire well, surround yourself by people that are smarter than you. You know what you want to do, but sometimes it's a matter of hiring those right people to really grow your company and your vision that you have for that company. I hope that answered your question. And I'm looking at Sam down here going, I think we might have forgot Sam, so we need to pull him on up.
Yes. Actually, thank you. Very good lead-in, because that's exactly where I was heading to next. Welcome, Sam. So Sam is from Where the Fund. Sam, just a little quick introduction. If you can please tell everybody your name, the title of your company, where you're from, did you go to college? If so, what was your major? Basically, just a little bit about you and how you are where you are today.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Sam Lewis, President and CEO of Where the Fund. I've been running the company for going on 11 years now. I started at the age of 20, and it was the first and only entrepreneurship. Well, I guess not per se the only. I did miscellaneous things in college and high school. And experimented with entrepreneurship, but my first real business. And so I've been doing it for 11 years, as I mentioned, and I went to the University of Florida and majored in psychology. And we'll go more into that as far as the role that that's played in managing a small business and specifically managing people. And but yeah, it was really I guess you could say a free-spirited walk into entrepreneurship that I did out of college in the face of deciding what I was going to do the rest of my life, or as I call it, my WTF epiphany, hence Where the Fund. And so we're a social startup. We donate a percentage of all of our revenue back to a nonprofit of our clients' choosing. And that was really the industry I was interested in experimenting with in college, and started in the garage. And 11 years later, we're still going. So I look forward to sharing more about that, and I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. So, Sean, I kind of want to go back to you. One of the things that you mentioned, again, you tried college, but you noticed it wasn't for you. You wanted to approach something that was a little bit more creative. And so talk us through basically, once you realized that you were not meant for college, that you wanted to take a different approach, you wanted to go and do something different. How did you decide barbering? And then also some of the requirements. So it's not just, well, you know, I'm going to go to barber school, because it's still an education. You still have to go through their curriculum. You still have to maintain your certifications and get certified. So let's talk about how you were kind of guided towards barbering after finding out that you wanted to do something more artistic, and then some of the considerations. What was your first thought process when you were like, you know what, I'm going to open my own business?
So I actually got my barber license before I even tried college. I was a late student. I would think it was around 22 years old when I was really into sports as well. And I said, maybe I'll try communication. I was at that age where I wanted to try a lot of things. What got me into barbering originally was just school just wasn't too inspiring for me while I was in it. And then I had a serious responsibility while I was in school. My son was born while I was a senior. So right out of school, I had to figure out a way to make money to provide. So barbering was something that I was always an artist. I love to draw. I love to paint. I like all things of art. So hair to me was something that I was already doing while I was in high school. Just the art of it was doing haircuts around the neighborhood and kids that were going to school. So it's just one of those things was like, hey, you're having a baby. What are you going to do? And I'm like, be a barber. And to be a barber, I had to go to barber school. So there was credentials where I had to go. And the state of New York, it was 500 hours. Around the country, it's usually around 1,500 hours. So I did that for a couple of years. And then just like anything else, I wanted to see if there was other interests. I tried school again, actually did really great once my mind was focused in on school. But I just found out I did a full year. Summer came along, and it was just one of those things that brought me back into being a creative. And I got it back into cutting hair. And I think reality started kicking in that I just didn't want to be that old man barber. That's all I did. Age catches up to me, and my body breaks down. And next thing I know, I'm pushing Mark the Publix as an older man, and talking about how great things used to be. So I think early on was like, all right, what's the next step if I don't want to do that? And I knew a lot of people in my industry, just being a young kid, looking at barbers that were a little bit older and seeing where they were at. That was one of the things I didn't want to be. And the first thought was, okay, set a 5-year plan for myself. And I created a 5-year plan for myself to open up my first barbershop and saved money, worked really hard every single day, build up the capital to create my first shop. And through that, I opened up my first shop. And, since then, I just, kept the ball rolling and kept opening up another shop. And my goal is to, how many does Sports Clips have in the country? That's the goal I tell myself. I want to continuously build, license, and eventually sell everything.
Congratulations. Love it.
Yeah, I know. That's amazing. So that process into opening up your first shop, let's talk through the emotions going into it. What are some thought processes when you were taking this plunge and you had to put up a lot of your own personal assets and your sweat, you know what I mean? What are some of your emotional processes in opening up your first business?
It was like excitement and scared, and then everybody was doubting me. And it was I opened up in 2010, so economy was really terrible at the time, but I took advantage of the opportunity because my first location was like a prime real estate corner that was building that, 3 times the amount now. I've moved in that location after 10 years, but originally to kick it off, I took advantage of the opportunity of being with the economy being where it was at. But a lot of people were saying you're crazy for opening up a business. So I believed in myself. That was the biggest thing. I worked really hard. I put in the extra hours in the morning. I was the first one in the shop. I was the last one to leave. I started doing night entertainment, like I was doing like open mic. I was building relationships behind the chair. So the biggest thing about entrepreneurship is relationship building. Your net worth is your network. So you have to build the relationship. So the people behind the chair, I started developing like these open mic promotions where was providing DJs and poets and comedians and musicians, and we were doing things on Monday. So a lot of my clients were going to these events as well, and this was helping me build up my money a little bit quicker than just making money behind the chair, till eventually I had made enough money to roll the dice on myself, which was scary because I wasn't taking a loan. So, and the positive thing about that is I wasn't stuck paying back a loan. But the scary thing is if I did go out of business, everything I saved up, I would lose. But I think I never had that thought in my mind. I think the smartest thing in my field was to build up enough clients that if I was the only person working in my shop, I can cover all my bills. So from that point on, as I was able to hire the right people to come into the business, and everything can build from that point.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, Rick, I'm going to ask you kind of a similar question to what I just asked Sean, and that deals with, you said you started off down one path, but then how did you get into opening up your first business? What are some of your thought processes and emotions tied into opening that business? And also, I'm going to tie it into what Connie kind of alluded to and what Sean alluded to is, they had a love for what they were looking at. So in other words, as a parent, she had some kind of a love behind, well, we need this for our community. This is what we need, or same thing with Sean, that artistic, I've already been going to barber school and I knew I loved that artistic. So let's talk about basically, how you got there, the emotions behind it of opening your first business, and what drew you to that specific business.
Well, it goes back actually when I was in high school. And I started off in high school and I was heading off to be an aircraft mechanic. And at that time, they had vocational training inside of high school. You could do it. So I think from 10th, 11th, 12th grade, last 3 years, half the day would be going down to, at the time, Grumman, before it was Northrop Grumman, was on Long Island, and we went there to their facilities, and they taught you how to be an airframe power plant mechanic. And it was great. That was the mission. I was going to finish that up, and I was going to go to college to get the rest of the certification. So as I'm cruising into that career path, the last week of high school, one of the instructors came in and said to us, "So where do you think you're going to be working?" And everybody said, "Oh, we'll be at LaGuardia or Kennedy, and it'll be great." And he paused and he said, "Well, and how much are you going to make?" And we threw out some, high numbers. And he said, "Well, you're going to be lucky if you make $10 an hour and working somewhere in Anchorage, Alaska on the third shift, freezing yourself to death, changing hydraulic lines." And we were like, "What are you talking about?" And it was just around the time, I'll date myself here, but just about the time where the airline deregulation hit the scene, right? So it was a time where Pan Am and TWA had their monopolies, and the government sort of allowed everybody to get in. The Southwest came on board and the whole bit. And many of those companies were collapsing, and there were just no jobs. So there I was with the summer in front of me, and I went home and I said, "This can't be possible." And I looked it up, and it was like, yes. And I could not afford to do that under any circumstances. It was just like, I couldn't do that. So I said, "All right, let me reset. I'll sign up for college, and I'll continue working these jobs that I was working." I think we were cleaning offices after high school, because I just worked as early as I could. I was working since I was 14. And I was complaining to someone who was an older friend. And I said, "I can't take this. Nobody gets things done right. I don't like it." And he said, "Why don't you just put an ad in the paper and paint houses?" So I said, "Oh, wow, that's interesting." And, like Connie said, you do quick research, you figure out what you could do. And I said, "All right." I put all the pieces together. It wasn't too difficult. And I went out and did that. And over the summer, we started making some good money. And I decided that to make it all work going forward, I'd put all my classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays for college. I'd work the rest of the time. And by September, I had about 6 people working for me. And this thing was moving along. And it just got to the point when I was what drove me from an entrepreneurial standpoint is not necessarily the love of a specific business, but more so that for some reason, I always look at things as if there's something in the way, an obstacle in the way, I want to solve the problem. And for me, it was more like, okay, I have to make money, so I have to work. So I'll do that. When I was in college, I wasn't really able to solve any problems. At the time, I felt that we were just going through some more of the liberal arts courses. They were not of interest to me. They weren't deep enough. At that point, the money, pulled me away. But as I went to each other industry that I went into, it was more about there's a problem that needs to be solved, and you can make money at it. But being an entrepreneur, and I don't know how everybody else feels, but it was never really, though, about the money. For me, it was always, if I could solve a problem, if I could build a good product, if I can charge a good price for that, the people will continue to come. And that's pretty much, what drove me. I don't like obstacles, and I don't like bureaucracies. And I know that they're important to exist. But I figured if I'm running things, I could clear my own path. Now, as everybody knows, if you're an entrepreneur, yes, you can clear your own path, but you cannot do what you want to do. You have a lot of responsibility to a lot of people, and you work a real fine line, especially when you're starting on cash flow, on picking the right products, hiring the right people. And you can't just take off Tuesday because you're the boss. In fact, you wonder if you can ever get a Sunday off, especially when you're starting. But for me, it's always been about, there's a problem, and I think I could solve it. and make things work. And then ultimately just make money from that.
Thank you. So, Jeffrey, I noticed that so far, our panelists have mentioned some tips that we have seen in your Are You Ready series that you've been
That's right.
presenting to the class. One of them is problem solving, being able to pivot or reset, work ethic, building relationships, believing in yourself. So now let's go to something personal to you. You've started 3 different medical leasing companies at different times. What are some considerations that you had to, when you opened your first one, what are some considerations that you had to, problems? Like, what did you have to overcome? What obstacles did you have to overcome? And how do you look at it when you're starting your own problem or solving your own problems when you're opening your company?
So I had a very successful career in investment banking, as I said, doing mostly healthcare work, but financing all kinds of divestitures of businesses.
Mm.
Those businesses raising debt had disappeared. It was hard to instruct a client how to go to Standard & Poor's and Moody's when I'd already done it 3 times. So going the 4th time, my value added was diminished because I'd already taught them how to do it, who to call, how to make the arrangements, what the information they needed. And it so happened that I had a partner in that business whose specialty was in equipment finance, general equipment finance. And we had always talked, driving to a client about starting our own business. He left, was working for a leasing company that had been approached by a major manufacturer of diagnostic imaging equipment called Picker International. And so my story is very, very different because I did that. I walked away from a perfectly good, well-paying job at age 46. Fortunately, my 2 sons were either through college or entering college, and they were taken care of. But what we brought was 2 very, very different disciplines that complemented each other. His name was Al. Al was a dreamer, meaning he could see where things were going and he could envision. And I was the one who would say, okay, I'll go to work on that and I'll research, like everyone has talked about. I'll research and come up with 3 alternatives. And the 3 alternatives are A, B, and C. Here are the pros and cons. Here are the risks and rewards. Which one do you want to do? And so it was point counterpoint. And one of my great beliefs is that I could not have done it alone, and neither could he. He might have been able to do what I did, but he didn't like it. He didn't like it. And so find a partner who complements your weakness or the thing that you don't like to do. So we started the company. It was very successful. We raised a lot of money, about $200 million in 2 years, developed great relationships with our funding sources. We had to borrow the money. We already had excellent relationships respectfully on our own. And so when you put those 2 together, we were recruited away by one of our funding sources and started another business. I don't have to go into the details. Again, that was very successful, violating one of the principles that I always have taught people, and that is get it in writing. We didn't get it in writing. We started the company for somebody else and they reneged. So we did that for 3 years. There were a total of 4 of us working together and we left. We started our own company, went and visited a banker, a personal friend who we'd worked with. And he said, I will lend you the money personally, which was for a very small commercial bank, was a huge risk. So somebody, as we've gone along, talked about relationships and building relationships. You never know when you're going to cross paths with somebody. So it isn't a matter of don't burn bridges. You don't have to worry about not burning them. Just don't even think about it. So that's my advice. It's one thing to make judgments of, it is just different. Make judgments about, should I go to college or should I work? And the money's good. And I understand all that. I was making good money and I walked away from it. And I want to tell you, that was not an easy decision. If I'd had to do it over again, I would have started before I was 46 years old, but I'm glad that I did. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, Jeffrey. So, Sam, I am going to ask you a question because you had mentioned a WTF epiphany, and I think that all of our panelists at some point had gone through an aha moment or a golly gee whiz, maybe we could have done that, or, I would like for you to talk about how you got there. What are some of your thought processes, how you got there, and the emotion, and I keep going back to the emotions behind starting your business, because I know there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears with opening a business, a lot of nights where you're like, oh, is this going to work? Because you put so much into it. So I would like for you to mention, your WTF moment, how you got to starting, where the fund in detail, and then the emotions behind it.
So I'll try to keep this as elevator pitch as possible. So yeah, I was in college my junior year, and I was studying, my major was in psychology, but I was minoring in finance. And I was, what you could say, between a rock and a hard place with really what I wanted to do. I'm definitely more of the dreamer mentality. The world's problems are my problems. What are we going to do about it? And back, so this was in 2010, 2011. There was only a handful of companies that had just really started to take off in the social, entrepreneurship space. My kind of role model, and who, one of my biggest admirations, is Patagonia clothing. And they've been around for, many decades. But so they're really you'd say the grandfather of the, social commerce space. They give back 1% of their profit, or 10% of their revenue, 1% of their revenue, or 10% of their profit, whichever is greater, to over 300 environmental organizations. And so I knew about them. And then there was another company, which most people are familiar with, which is Tom's Shoes. Yeah. And they were kind of stealing the limelight in the early 2000s and really starting to take off. And they have their 1-for-1 program, and they've expanded that. And so I went to my finance professor, because I knew, of course, that was where the money was going into that industry versus, the much bigger gamble of being an entrepreneur. Or going into some kind of social work was what I intended if I pursued the psychology route. And, he told me, you can't be Mother Teresa or Warren Buffett, you have to pick one. But if you pick Warren Buffett, then you can, once you make your money, then you can be a philanthropist and you can be Mother Teresa, but you gotta kind of pick a path. And so I was just, of course, my rebellious college years. So I'm like, no, that's not right. I can do both. And so, defied his advice, which I'm still trying to figure out whether or not he was right. I'm still not sure. But so I said, and that's really what social entrepreneurship is. It's creating a for-profit enterprise and giving back at the same time. And so that really was the WTF epiphany. And I was literally thinking WTF, as everyone knows it, on a day-to-day basis. Am I going to do with my life? What's going to be fulfilling? And one of the biggest factors for me was being a dreamer, being, more of a visionary type. I fast forwarded my life 50, 60 years, and I said, wow, that seems really, really bland, making a ton of money, getting rich, having kids, and then life's over. Like, great. What, that doesn't seem adventurous at all. And I really wanted an adventure. And so that's really where I decided, okay, I'm going to take the gamble and I'm going to start a business and where the funds, WTF, that's it. And so the next day I literally started, found business plan template online on Google and just printed it off and started filling it out. And, called some friends, called some family members, said, hey, what do you think about this? And, most of them were like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah. But I had a couple that really did believe in it and, kind of pushed me along. And I was just honestly obsessed, and I was, extremely passionate about it. And I, the whole social entrepreneurship, and specifically our business model, I still truly believe can be a, billion and, eventually $1 trillion industry. And so that was one of my big driving passions. The more money business side of me and ambitious side, sees that side of it, that it truly has the potential to be a cure-all, not only for making money as a business owner and entrepreneur, but also solving one of the world's biggest problems, which is, of course, giving back to the areas of humanity that need money, specifically nonprofits who do the legwork, and most businesses give back to regardless. But a tiny bit on that, the idea is a more efficient capitalism, which is essentially, if you think of it this way, if every business gave back 1% voluntarily, or 2%, that's, there's your extra billions and trillions of dollars on an annual basis that are going back to good things. And the reason why it's still capitalism is that it's voluntary. Businesses don't have to do it, but at the same time, if you choose to do it, you are putting yourself ahead of your competition. And it is a attractive marketing tool as a business to, of course, build in giving into your business model. And so, so that was my epiphany, and I moved back to Fort Myers, Florida. I was born and raised here, and I started in my home garage, a 10 by 10 square foot room in the garage. And first, I was going to do retail shirts and just sell, $20 t-shirts, kind of figuring it out as I went. And then this friend needed shirts, and that friend needed shirts, and so we quickly turned into more of a wholesale business, which it's taken me 11 years to figure out was a very painful turn. But I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity and kind of going into it blindly. Being a dreamer, I don't like the planning, I don't like the research. And so I just took every day as it was. And it was truly, I think, my passion for solving a problem, for changing the world, and not really the money, because I had essentially turned down the better idea, which was to go, work in finance somewhere in order to work on this problem. And so over 11 years, I say I've got my MBA, 11 times over, and it's, learned all of the hard knocks, which always keep coming, but, year by year, we've gotten better and smarter and leaner. And, and that's one of, the biggest things I've had to learn is, if I could do it all over again, I would definitely, have put more planning and research into it. And, it would have saved me probably years of my life and some gray hairs, and, had a higher net worth at this point, or maybe completely taking the business in a different direction. But, there definitely is adventure and, something to say for passion and doing something that you truly believe in, that kind of makes it just fly by and have a lot of fun. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, regardless of what the next decade holds. But, it's, WTF, it's part of our daily life. And that was, one of the things that rang true for me. It was, I said, hey, this is a world-changing idea, a world-changing class of industry. And WTF not only is going on in my life, but what's going on in the world. And I think that rings true more so today than it did 10, 12 years ago. And so, it's still an adventure every day, waking up, and, entrepreneurship just is the best. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that it's for everybody, because you certainly do wake up some days and say, man, that 9 to 5 sounds really nice. right about now. On somebody else's dime, so yeah, but it wouldn't trade the experience for anything.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Connie, let's go to you. Again, you had mentioned that you opened Conric, which is, it's in line with your magazines that you have opened, because it does deal with public relations. But let's talk about Conric, and building relationships and believing in yourself. How did you get from starting a magazine and having magazines to, let me open a public relations and communication firm? Like, how did you, and again, some of the themes are, pivoting, problem solving, painful turns, solving a problem, resetting and moving on. So how did you go from, I'm going to start a magazine because I see this need. Okay, great. This magazine's doing good. Let me start this other magazine, see this need. Great, this magazine's doing good. I'm going to open up a communications firm and a public relation firm. How did you get there? And what relationships did you have to build? And again, just let us know the how and the why of that.
Good questions. And magazines to some are a PR communication piece for their business or their association. So when I was publishing Southwest Florida Parent and Child magazine, I've bridged a lot of relationships, formed a lot of relationships with all the businesses that we sold advertising to, all the parents and all the folks in the community that had that had children in the community as well. But most of all the advertisers these are small businesses that were advertising. They might have been a Twin Cuts. They might have been, I think there's a place called Banana Haircuts for Kids or something. All the doctor's office, karate studios, dance studios, everything. There were so many advertisers. We had, I think, about 120 something advertisers on a regular basis. And a lot of these small business owners didn't know how to write the press release that I would ask them for to get the story into the publication. I'm like, I know you've got this great thing going on. Can you send me a quick press release? What's a press release? Or how do I go about that? And so, a lot of them didn't have necessarily the funding to hire somebody to do their PR marketing, while other companies we work with, SeaWorld and Disney, of course, they had, their own communications firms. There was also individuals that they didn't have photos, they didn't have a logo for their business. So we were creating ads for them or articles and editorial for them, but really they had not much there. After a couple years of that, I thought to myself, if I ever get out of this business, I'm going to go help these businesses with their brand. They're struggling. That a lot of them didn't know how to design their own, again, have their own brand, their identity with a logo, how to tell me what they even did, how to articulate that. Because there's a lot of great business owners out there, but they really don't know how to tell their story. They don't know how to explain in a short, concise way what exactly they do, what's that impact that they're going to make, and why people need to do business with them in a very short, little matter of fact way. And so I found myself doing that for free often as the publisher of Southwest Florida Parent and Child magazine. And I thought, at some point down the line, I'm going to help these businesses. Well, when in 2007, when the recession really hit hard and continued for a few years after that, as you know, there were not a lot of jobs out there. So people were starting businesses left and right. And they all needed a helping hand, all of my friends in business too. So I decided, instead of working, and I should back up for just a second, when Southwest Florida Parent and Child magazine, the company that bought the magazine for me is Gannett, the owner of USA Today, owner of News Press. They had been trying to buy the magazine for about 2 years. And then finally the day came where I said, it's time, because part of the agreement to buy the magazine was hiring me also as the publisher. So I was working at the News Press for about almost 3 years and became their niche daily advertising director. So Grandeur magazine, Must Do, a Spanish language magazine, Gaceta Tropical, and there were 2 other publications that I was managing there. So I was giving this company, I work like an entrepreneur, so I gave them a lot more than a 9-to-5 job there. And I thought, if I'm going to do this and work this hard, I might as well work this hard for myself again. And that's when I started Conrick PR and marketing as a way to go back into business for myself, take care of that need that I desperately saw out there in the community. And, I don't let something for these students, just because there's a company out there, another company like you want to start, doesn't mean you should not create your own company, because we all do better if there's competition out there. If there's not competition, people get lazy. They don't necessarily work too hard. And we're a growing market here in Southwest Florida. So we need many haircut places. We need many magazines. We need many marketing agencies. Not one of us could possibly do the level of work that's needed in this marketplace. So I think we make each other better out there. And recognizing what a couple of the agencies did really well, really honing in on my niche services, which in the beginning was very small startup companies, helping them out. We've then transitioned to becoming more of a national agency, hiring our staff not just here locally, but across the country, and working with clients not just here locally, but across the country as well. But when we first started, we took care of what we saw was the immediate need, and that was our Southwest Florida area. As we grew, we expanded that mindset. And there's a lot more agencies here in town too that I think, all of them, there's a place for each and every one. And I think they all do amazing work out there. So I'm the new owners of Conrick PR and Marketing are incredible. And doing a great job keeping that vision going and serving all these clients too. But it's as easy as that. Understanding first the need that's in the marketplace. If you see that need out there and you know who to help and you're talking to those and building that already, that's the basis of starting that business. Putting together, like Sean said earlier, that 5-year plan. What does that look like? If 5 years seems intimidating, start with a 1-year plan, go to a 3-year plan, and then look out for 5 years. But take those baby steps. And it's one thing to know this was a need in the marketplace, but how to monetize it. So I interviewed a lot of marketing companies and a lot of marketing professionals to find out what are those rates structured, how should things be structured, what would I like to take on myself and what I'd like to hire out for. And starting at home in my own home office, I had children at the time and made that the priority first. And then once they graduated from high school, went out and opened an office, expanded that office, and we went to 5 office locations in the matter of the 15 years we were here in Southwest Florida, and about to go into a 6,500 square foot office space, the former what is now the Collaboratory, but the Southwest Florida Community Foundation. We were about to get that 6,500 square foot office space in October of 2019. And then a gut feeling, a sixth sense said to me, listen, I told my husband, I said, listen, I know you've been looking for an office space with me to move this company, and our staff has, and we're excited. But I have this sixth sense that next year, whether it be a recession, a natural disaster, something's going to happen. And I don't want 6,500 square foot of space that may or may not be utilized and may not be an asset to our company and our team. So with that, I talked to a business coach. I think everybody should have a business coach out there or a mentor to talk to. And I said, I know this was a plan, but I'm pivoting because my gut feeling's pretty strong. And I don't want to think like a small boutique agency anymore. I want to think like a national or global marketing agency. And the way to do that is to not get into a 6,500 square foot space. It's to really become more of a remote agency like Salesforce and HubSpot, and think more like that so we can align ourselves for future growth, that we're not stuck to the size of the building that we're in. And if something should happen next year, we hope it didn't, but if something should happen next year, I don't, again, want to have that kind of overhead over my head. And we started, the staff loved it. I presented it to the staff because I was first concerned about our staff, making sure that they were going to be okay with this decision because they had picked out that office space with me, knowing we were going to be in there. So I came back and I said, I know you live and drive and over by Ave Maria and take about 45 minutes to over an hour sometimes to get to and from work. I know you have this kind of drive in this situation. What if we did this? And they were so excited with that decision. I had no idea how they were all feeling about that drive into work, but everybody was on board. And we started transitioning a few people of our staff each month leading up to January 2020. Everybody was moved into their home office successfully operating. I was the last to move over in January. And of course, we got a satellite office in Fort Myers and one in Naples so that we could see clients at those offices. But by March 1st, when that lease ended, our new lease began, 2 weeks later, everything shut down for the pandemic. So timing, I mean, I could have never predicted a pandemic, but sometimes as a business owner, you have to go with your gut. You have to go with with maybe like a sixth sense, look at the market trends and cycles, because there's a lot of things that happen in cycles throughout time. I'm old enough where I've lived through a few of those cycles already. And those are the things that, help guide me as an entrepreneur. And I share this just to help those students that are out there looking at entrepreneurism. Pay attention to what the overall market's doing, not just your own business, not just what's happening right here in Southwest Florida, but look at global trends too, because that way you're not pigeonholing yourself to what's going on right here. You can really see what's trending all across the globe and see what will work in your local market to fit your business footprint.
Thank you. That's perfect. So we have a couple minutes left, and I wanted to go back to you, Rick. First, you wound up starting, like you said, in painting, but you're kind of an entrepreneur in multiple fields. So let's talk about a little bit of those fields. And, you're spread out. So it's not just one thing that you're focusing on. You have a bunch of different things that you have under your belt. How do you manage operating multiple companies, and also a tip of the trade? Give yourself or give students a tip. If I'm going to start out owning my business, what would you tell yourself?
Well, a couple of things. There's reasons you could start off with why you shouldn't start a business. And, I guess all of us have been through this where, I very rarely talk to anybody about my ideas of starting a business, whatever it might be. What I found is a lot of entrepreneurs have things in common, that we have these great big ideas. And if you sit down and you talk to a group of people, they'll think you're insane. And they'll all have comments, and you'll make it or you won't, and everybody will put their 2 cents in, and that's fine, and people mean well. But what I always found is you would just see ideas that would follow a basic pattern that you're comfortable with. In my case, it would be, can you develop a new product or a new piece of software, and can you break into a market and where people, where a small percentage of the market will adopt it early adopters. So I was mostly in businesses that were on a paper-based environment where you transfer them into a more electronic way of operating. So we did that. I just found that basic pattern. So you can really apply that to so many businesses. People think aviation is so sophisticated. When I got into that industry, people were writing things on one piece of paper, signing off, putting it on another piece of paper, signing off, putting it in another book, stapling it to a piece of paper so they could get an aircraft signed off to fly. And we saw an opportunity there to just take a piece of software, make everything electronic, and then bring that to market. We did that on the financial services side of things, and we're also doing that and on the marine side of things today. So it may look impressive, like, oh, you're all in these different industries, but it's just the same basic concept. And so I can see those things, and I can get the software written. I don't write software, but I know enough to be able to articulate that to a group of programmers and get things done, and also manage that budget. If you've ever tried to develop software, you can go broke really fast and things can get way out of hand. So I know how to manage that. And I've just, either gotten lucky or better over time with that. But in terms of starting a business, again, like I said earlier, it was really just seeing a need, taking my skill set, and then being able to make a logical risk profile. Hey, if I do that, how many people will buy it? How much of the market do I have to penetrate? What price point can I do it? And if all those things line up, I'll just go and do it, and hire in the people that I need to make it work. And I don't know if that's necessarily helpful, because I'm giving it really like the high level view there. But I would say that if you're comfortable, if you're starting out or you're interested in being an entrepreneur, you have to, it's got to be about what you're thinking and what you're doing, not your audience, not people around you. Is this something that you could fill a need and make it work? And then just go about being real about, can I afford to do this? Where am I going to get the money? And then just going, and not really talking much to people about your ideas, because maybe some people get feedback or like that. But for me, and I'm not being critical of it, for me, I always found that a lot of people didn't understand what I was doing. If you try to talk to somebody and just think about it, hey, listen, right now, people who are sitting in an aircraft engine and they're signing this book, I think we can put an application together that could wipe out all those spaces and do this and do that, and we could sell it for X amount of dollars. And people would look at you in most cases like, what are you even talking about? That's a stupid idea. So I avoid those conversations, and I just go about seeing if it works for me. The other thing that I hear it all the time, and people, use things like, I want to be my own boss. I want to make a ton of money. I want to do what I want to do. And I'm going to show that person who didn't think that I was good, that I'm really good. And I found that that'll take you right off track often. You just do it because you see a need in a market. You want to do something that maybe nobody's done before. You see an opportunity out there. And the other way I cheated too with the mindset, I always cheated by going, okay, look, we're going to build every business on a mutual respect thing. I'm going to put out a product that's the best that I can do, and I'm going to offer it to customers who are going to buy it from me, and they're going to pay me for that. And if I just follow that balance of provide a good service and a good product and get customers that are good paying customers, and I cultivate that, I think you can apply that to any business. And that's been a recipe for success. Not the only one, but it's that suits my personality best. And I would just say that as an individual, you've got to find what suits your personality best. Like Sam said, he wanted to help people. He found a way to actually make it happen. Like, I'll do both. That's an entrepreneur. Hey, you got to do this first and do that second. No, look, I'm going to do both. And I'm going to go about doing it. And you see the vision and you do it. And it's different, than Sean. It's just, everybody has a different way, and Connie has a different way. It's your personality. Find the thing that works for you, assess the risk, and go for it.
So we are now out of time. So just some reoccurring themes that everybody had mentioned. Just remember, with entrepreneurship, first of all, you have to believe in yourself. Second of all, you have to have work ethic. This is almost like raising a baby when you start a business. Everybody mentioned how they put in a lot of hours in starting their business and their dream. Building relationships was another key theme. This all goes into the same category of solving a problem, learning how to reset, learning how to pivot. There's a lot of painful turns, just knowing that you have to be flexible whenever there's a road bump. And it's, as Jeffrey had said in an earlier series, he had wound up saying it's not a stop or a wall, it's a road bump, or it's, you know, how do you get around it? And then finding something that you're interested in. There's a need in the community and something that you're interested in, because you will do so much better at it if you have a love for it, have an understanding of it, and you see that it's a need for not just yourself, but your circle, your community that you're in. So those were some reoccurring themes, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Sam, Sean, Jeffrey, Rick, and Connie. You have no idea how much we appreciate your time. Thank you for talking to our students. And Kelly, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. And like Leslie said, giving up your time to mentor our students virtually. And I know that they will appreciate all of your words and your lessons. So thank you all for being on here. And Leslie, thank you to you and Junior Achievement of Southwest Florida. Look forward to continuing this partnership. And students, teachers, parents, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And panelists, thank you again one more time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question, Kelly, for the CTE, where will this be located?
I will post that in the chat. And if anyone has YouTube, you can just go to YouTube and do a search for Lee County CTE for Career and Technical Education, and you will find all of our videos and playlists that are there for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeffrey, for this entire series, for Be Entrepreneurial, and thank you, panelists. We appreciate your time.
Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.